Good evening, I'm Sav Jonesa, and welcome to APTN National News Weekend. The inquest into how Myles Sanderson died in police custody after killing 11 people and wounding another 17 in September 2022 wrapped up last week. It was determined that Sanderson died of acute cocaine toxicity while the RCMP was taking him to Saskatoon. Our reporter, Rachel May, has more on what community members are saying following that emotional inquest.
September 7th, 2022 was the day Myles Sanderson was arrested for stabbing 11 people to death and wounding another 17 on the James Smith Cree Nation and nearby village of Weldon in Saskatchewan. It was also the day he died. Eddie Head is Director of Justice for James Smith Cree Nation. He's also Myles Sanderson's uncle. He says the inquest into how he died was a way to provide closure to families.
In order for us to move on, we have to forgive. If you can't forgive, you can never heal.
Head acknowledged that drugs played a huge role in the safety of the community. They still do. He says that this is why it's so important for the community to police itself.
Local security, they know who belongs to the First Nation, and they know the vehicles that come on and come out. There is still that problem with drugs on the First Nation, but not as bad as it could be if it wasn't the involvement of our security.
At the inquest, videos of Sanderson's arrest was made public. It shows him asking how many people he had killed and why no one had shot him. Vanessa Burns, Sanderson's ex-common law partner of 15 years, says she was disgusted by what she saw.
Kind of impacted me a little bit because I thought maybe he'd be a little bit sorry for what he did.
Burns says she's happy with the recommendations that came out of the inquest, like better driver training for the RCMP and a dedicated team for finding people with outstanding warrants. But she hopes it isn't just all talk and the RCMP and Saskatoon City Police implement change. During the inquest, it was said that Sanderson had abused Burns during their relationship. She is now taking counseling to help her on her healing journey.
Getting out of domestic violence is just learning to get to know yourself, like even just spending time alone, figuring what you like to do and what you like.
Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
The family of two Métis hunters were in an Edmonton courtroom Wednesday to hear the appeal of Anthony Bido, who was convicted of second-degree murder in 2022 for killing Jacob Sansom and Maurice Cardinal. Anthony Bilodeau's father, Roger Bido, was also convicted in 2022 for manslaughter in connection with the hunters' shooting deaths after a high-speed chase that happened in a rural Alberta community in 2020. The appeal court justices are now reviewing the arguments for the appeal, with lawyers for the Bilodeaus saying a phone conversation between the father and son just before the altercation was not fully allowed as evidence. Roger Bido appealed his conviction last September, and a decision in that case has still not been announced.
We've been waiting for, what month is it? It's March.
6 months.
It's March,
Yeah.
6 months today for Rogers and appeal hearing, and we're still sitting here waiting, and now we're going to have to wait God knows how long for this hearing. Hopefully not near as long, but it's a constant. It's always people are like, isn't it over yet? Aren't you glad it's over? What do you mean? It's not over for us. It's never over for us.
A recent report by a housing advocacy group says that houseless rates in Vancouver are expected to jump significantly if nothing gets done immediately. APTN's Tina House has this story.
It's got my backpack in it, my clothes, there's some blankets, food, utensils for eating, items for cooking on. And this one here, I think is all my tent equipment.
We met Mark a few months back when police and city workers moved into Oppenheimer Park to remove people who are what the city calls illegally camping. But for those that have nowhere else to go, they call this park home. At the time, they only had him remove his tent during the day. Mark Menard is a trained and experienced heavy equipment operator, but has found it challenging to find an affordable place to rent in Vancouver. He also says that he hasn't been able to find work either because he constantly has to watch his belongings from getting stolen or thrown away by city officials. And just recently, that's exactly what city workers did.
It got to the point where they just kept taking my stuff. And then it got to the point now when they came the last time, they took my bins and everything in them, my tarps, my tent, my blankets, my clothing, my food. I was left with one bag and a backpack, and that's it.
And with Vancouver now deemed the most expensive city to live in Canada, how are those on low income and facing multiple barriers able to afford to live here? The Carnegie Housing Project says houselessness could jump by 50% by 2030 if swift action isn't taken immediately.
Stopping the loss of modular housing by either finding new sites or extending the leases on the current sites in the city, so we're not actually losing housing as we desperately need it. Stopping the loss of SROs to rents by implementing vacancy control in SROs, changing the definition of social housing to one that actually includes shelter rate, which is people that need the housing the most.
The city has 860 units of modular housing. 144 of them are boarded up in the middle of a housing crisis. The ones behind us, 39 more, we don't know where they're going to go, but those people are being evicted now. So the city needs to find sites for all of the modular housing.
And with these modular housing sites originally temporarily set up on city-owned lots that weren't in development at the time, Swanson and other advocates say action needs to be taken immediately. The City of Vancouver provided the following statement. There are no new temporary modular housing sites underway. The TMH program was always intended to be temporary as the city prioritizes permanent housing solutions. The original license terms vary by location. When a lease of a city site approaches expiry and the license cannot be extended due to pending redevelopment or the site or bylaw limitations, BC Housing and the operator work together to relocate residents to other affordable supportive homes. However, Devin O'Leary says, despite the assurances from the city, he says things aren't moving ahead in his opinion.
Things have been made invisible, I would say, and the harm is definitely higher. It's always stressful for people that are being displaced. There hasn't been any sort of indication of more housing and any care really for that. So yeah, it hasn't gotten any better.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Grief and loss are things we all experience at some point. Now, a First Nation artist from the Yukon is channeling her personal experiences with grief, loss, and mourning through a new art exhibit in Whitehorse. Here's Sarah Connors with a look.
The tent itself is a metaphor for talking about grief, especially around substance use disorder.
White River First Nation artist Teresa Vandermeer Chassé has lost many loved ones in recent years. Now she's inviting audiences to witness the universal cycles of loss, grief, and mourning through her new exhibit, Sheyitsa, Crying in the Heart. It debuted Thursday at the Yukon Arts Center in Whitehorse.
It's a very personal and vulnerable exhibition in some ways. For this piece, my grandpa gave me this pillow.
The exhibit is a collection of 3 installations. The first is in remembrance of her maternal great-grandmother. It recounts the discovery of finding half of her great-grandmother's house robe used as stuffing in a pillow she crocheted. Vandermeer Chassé added embroidery and beadwork to the robe and used Atlantic salmon skin to reconstruct it. It also features the many tea bags used to dye the salmon skin.
And this work is never going to be complete. It's supposed to be a piece about kind of taking it and working on it whenever I have an exhibition.
Audiences can then weave their way to what she calls Worms Shower Among Us. Using yarn, Vandermeer Chassé reflects on an ancient story passed down through her family about witnessing a volcanic eruption.
The story that we have, which is amazing because it's 1,500 years old, is that it was there was so much ash that it looked like what they said was fuzzy black worms falling from the sky.
Vandermeer Chassé put her own touch on the piece by using rabbit fur for the worms. To incorporate ash, she used charcoal from a recent wildfire near her home community of Beaver Creek and cigarette butts from her late grandmother. For her, the work is personal.
The hanging structure that I've kind of created talks a little bit about kind of death itself. Yeah, let's go inside. It's nice and bright in here too.
Perhaps the most striking installation is this repurposed wall tent salvaged from Vandermeer Chassey's traditional territory. The piece touches on her personal experiences with loss due to substance use disorder.
So there's texts that I've embroidered or beaded and things like that all around. And these are messages that I sent to family members who have passed away with a substance use disorder or have a substance use disorder, and I'm talking about a passing.
The exhibit runs until May 17th. Vandermeer Chassey hopes audiences will find meaning in its message.
So it's just more of adapting to a new life that you, to a new reality, to a new lived experience that you have after the loss of a very close loved one.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Whitehorse.
We need to step aside for a moment, but stick around. We have some more great stories coming up next. Welcome back. Actor, writer, and all-around cool girl Katarina Zervoal made her acting debut in the recently released Marvel miniseries Echo. APTN met up with Zervoal to discuss her success and dreams for the future. Katarina Zervoal is becoming well known as the actor who played Taloa, the deaf mother of the title character in the Marvel miniseries Echo. Deaf and Indigenous representation are at the heart of the show. Through an ASL interpreter, Zervoal spoke with APTN about her experience in the entertainment industry so far.
I think that, having interpreters in the industry has been paramount for me, and just making sure that the needs and the accommodations are heard and what people need for that. Like, even thinking about when I was working on the set for Echo, they had lights in my dressing room, so somebody would hit a doorbell, but it would flash a light so I would know somebody was coming in. So I think actually they gave a great example of providing accessibility. Even the cast and the crew all learned some sign language.
Zervoal is Mohawk, Ojibwe, and German, and is a member of Saugeen First Nation in Manitoba. She says at first she was quite nervous about being on such a big production for the filming of Echo.
But once I got there, I saw so much of the crew being Indigenous, deaf crew as well, and just how they were able to create a sense of a welcoming, feeling. I felt included. That really helped to alleviate a lot of those apprehensions, because I am part of both of those communities, right? Deaf and Indigenous.
Zervoal holds many talents in the industry. Aside from acting, she also co-wrote her first feature film, Finality of Dusk, which came out last year. It focuses on a post-apocalyptic world with a deaf antagonist. She says she hopes to work in a writer's room in the future.
I'd love to do a TV show. I mean, I love to write anything, really. Graphic novels, I'd love to do books, I'd love anything, any type of media. I'd love to do some animation, but having kind of a bent of sci-fi, right? Because I love the sci-fi genre. It's one of my favorites.
Zervoal attributes her interest in the film and television industry to her mother and stepfather. They also work in the industry and showed Zervoal the power of Indigenous representation. Though being deaf and Indigenous are important parts of Zervoal's identity, she says she is more than just that.
Like the fact that I'm a big sci-fi nerd. I love to play video games. I love reading. I love being in nature, going camping, and that's a huge part of who I am too. So, and I'd just like to have people see me as those parts are part of me too, right? And that all of those things make up who I am. And to really get to know who I am, those are all really important parts in all different areas that you should know. Instead of just thinking as, we're all kind of the same, or it's kind of hard to explain, but we all have different parts.
Also, I think it maybe give those people an opportunity to explain themselves, like what had happened in the past and where they were at. And
a jab, a kick, and a win. Winnipeg Muay Thai fighter Ashley Viner shares her journey to earning a world title championship. Here's more on that.
So your one would be jab, and then your knee. So what would happen is you'd bring your hand back to your face, and you'd come up straight, and you'd put this hand down.
I'm learning the art of Muay Thai from Ignite Fight's newest international welterweight champion of the world. Ashley Viner has been working hard towards that triumphant title for almost a decade.
I would say the first 3-4 weeks of training, you're super motivated. You're like, yeah, I'm gonna run every day. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. And then 4 weeks in, you're tired, you're depleted, you're living off of a minimal diet. You're trying to cut weight if you have to.
Muay Thai is similar to boxing, but uses fists, elbows, shins, and knees to fight. In February, Viner's years of dedication and discipline paid off.
It's your winner by unanimous decision, out of the red corner,
It was exciting. I was happy. I was extremely emotional. I had gone in 2023. I had fought 6 times and I had lost all 6 of my fights. I had 3 championship fights and I lost all 3. So I was mentally feeling defeated. I was contemplating stepping back in the ring. I, was contemplating, am I going to continue doing this?
Though the Winnipeg-based fighter almost quit before her big win, a trip to where the martial art began reignited her spirit.
So I had the opportunity to go train in Thailand, and I took the whole pressure of fighting out of it, and I wanted to learn the culture. I wanted to learn the history behind the training, and I came back and I feel more mentally prepared to go into the ring. It's not such a pressure I feel anymore. Like I have to get in there and I have to perform a certain way. It's just getting into the ring and performing to the best of your ability.
Viner, who is Black and Métis, has won multiple titles in her career so far. She's ranked #1 in Canada by the Muay Thai World Cup and has received an offer to join Team USA. Despite the success, she says it's frustrating to not yet be recognized by her own country to represent Team Canada.
I'm hoping that this will open up those doors to show that I am a contender in Canada. I have fought internationally. I'm ranked #1, so why am I not getting the fights that I should be getting? And why is USA picking me up before my own country is?
A force to be reckoned with, Viner says of all her accomplishments, she's most proud of the time she's put in.
I have fought some girls who have been in this sport their whole lives, and I've been in this sport in a decade, and I've been able to accomplish a lot in a decade that some people don't accomplish throughout their whole fight career. So I think that just goes back to being disciplined and wanting a goal and working towards that goal.
Viner now owns her own gym along with her husband, where they coach other fighters on how to harness their inner strength.
Okay, so jab, knee, 2, knee.
Ashley really put me to work in that story. Okay, we have to take one more break, but I hope to see you when we return. There was huge representation for Indigenous peoples this year at the 2024 Canadian Screen Awards. Nominees were announced Wednesday for the CSAs, which recognize excellence in Canadian television, film, and digital media. It was a big year for APTN as well. The network received 30 nominations. Here's Savannah Kelly with more.
APTN National News anchor Dennis Ward received his first solo nomination for Best News Anchor National for the September 30th special event Remembering the Children. APTN Investigates was also nominated for 4 awards, including Best News or Information Series. In the film category, Hey Victor is nominated for Best Original Screenplay. Its star, co-writer, and director Cody Lightning is nominated for Best Performance in a Leading Role Comedy. TV series Acting Good is nominated for Best Ensemble Performance for a Comedy. Dominating the television category is the APTN and Crave co-production Little Bird, which focuses on the effects of the 60s scoop. It received 19 nominations, including Best Drama Series. 2 actors on the show, Darla Contois and Ellen Jade, are nominated for Best Lead Performer in a Drama Series. Contois was excited for her first nomination.
It was just total disbelief and shock because just being, a small town girl from the reserve, like I was never expecting something like this. So it just feels like I just feel really grateful. It's just like when people that you don't know are rooting for you and supporting you and recognizing you, it feels really great.
When you think of coding, hip-hop may not be one of the first things that pops into your head, but hundreds of students were at the University of Calgary to learn about computer coding and doing it with Indigenous hip-hop artists. APTN's Chris Stewart has a story on Your Voice is Power.
This is the jam. You hear soft in the distance. We are the kids that you dismiss. We are the targets you just miss. We are the descendants of killers and cheaters.
Cree hip-hop artist Dakota Bear is lending his music for use so students can take his vocals and beats and use a unique program called EarSketch to remix his songs to create their own unique music. The program is called Your Voice is Power, presented by Taking It Global and Amazon Future Engineer Program. Inspire Award-winning educator Marika Shala helped bring the US-based program to Canada and added Indigenous artists and teachings to it.
So they take little stems from our featured artists Dakota Bear, Jaylee Wolf, Simeon, and Twin Flames, and they use different percussion and piano and guitar strings to create a beautiful song that has a message of social justice change. Like, what call to action can I use in my song to bring a new message?
Julie Demiersman is a grade 9 student. She admits she had no interest in coding until she got here.
Today was actually really, really fun because we got to meet 3 Indigenous artists, right? And on the coding platform we're using, we get to use their music and like voices and beats and all that to create our own music so we can like try to use our voice as power.
The week-long program offers 8 modules, from computer sciences, debugging, and mixing, to social issues like racism, residential schools, and decolonization. Teachers can run the free program in their classrooms or at the larger hackathons like this one in Calgary. Junior high and high school kids can take their music and enter them into a competition to win one of 2 $5,000 scholarships to a university or a college.
I've seen a lot of creativity come out from this. I've seen a lot of youth being able to use their skills and talents and even form new skills and passions.
The program wants to engage 20,000 students and teachers this year in Canada. Teachers can register at yourvoiceispower.ca. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Another episode of APTN National News Weekend has come to an end. For news anytime, you can check out our website at aptnnews.ca. I'm Sav Jonesa, and from all of us here at APTN National News, thank you so much for joining us today.